So, it has large copper deposits, which may account for Plato's mention of orichalcum.
But is it round?
Is it round? Well, that's the thing. It's there is no structure there that really looks round. There is an area north of Cadiz, which is called the Doñana National Park, which is kind of a swampy bird preserve, fairly large area. And people claim to have found shapes in the ground from satellite photos that look like concentric circles. And apparently the ground there has subsided, and it's kind of just, like I said, swampy. So that makes excavation pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... and I looked at the satellite photos. I couldn't see these outlines. People have also said they've seen some rectangular structure outlines, too. I can't find them myself. I found something that looks like Google on there. Yeah.
Well, that's
you should Google people.
That is the hard part when people try to use satellite imagery to find stuff. Not that it hasn't worked before, but I feel like sometimes those were the lucky ones because a lot of people are looking and looking and looking and then just staring at shadows of trees and deciding that is actually a change in the structure of the Earth below it.
And we saw that with the Phobos 2 incident. When you look at the pictures, it's like, yeah, you could draw an outline of like anything you want in that. You can see whatever you want in that, but realistically, it's just shadows and craters.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that shows us how accurate Courtney Love was when she used it.
Yeah. And Phobos, by the way, you're still an ugly little moon.
Rude.
Sorry.
Phobos is never going to call you again.
I know. Actually, I think Phobos is pretty cool looking, actually, in an ugly sort of way. Yeah. So between Cadiz and Doñana National Park, what's called the Guadalquivir River flows into the Atlantic. And it is believed that in ancient times, the river split before reaching the ocean, which created an island in what is today that southern part of the national park. That could have been the island of Atlantis. Okay. And also, I should say, there are mountains to the north, which is another key point.
The one thing that just struck me that I hadn't really thought about before is that we all presume that everything that was done, it was done in some kind of stone structure, when it could have actually been earthen structures.
Yeah, totally.
So it could have been, let's just presume that Plato was telling the truth about the rings, but he was off on the scale. Well, then that could have easily, over a couple of generations, been done by people just as an earthwork, and then when they stop maintaining it, it goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to go with this, it's actually just on a peninsula that happened to have a bunch of earthwork rings on it. People are like, wow, that's really cool.
That could be. So
I'm making this up off the top of my head.
You're saying that Atlantis was earthwork, or you're saying that there were earthworks built on this spot and the earthworks went away, but they're still sort of...
I'm saying that that Atlantis wasn't some giant city, but it was probably a town that had all these earthworks that the locals were keeping up. So when Plato says they were these giant rings in the ocean and da-da-da-da-da, I'm saying, okay, well, they were probably actually above ground if we're going to go in this, it was on a peninsula theory. That's the only way I could buy it.
But I could totally see that too. The earthworks get smooshed by a tsunami because there have been some big old tsunamis in this part of the world, the coast of Spain and Portugal. So that could definitely knock them all apart and sort of semi-dissolve them. But I don't know. It's considered a very strong candidate, but I don't know. And then there's one last one. Mark talked about Morocco also. It's a German guy named Michael Hübner just did a bunch of what's the word I'm thinking? A bunch of data analysis of all the various clues and came up with a site in Morocco, which is also and I don't know. Did you read this book? Did you read the Morocco part?
Yeah, I think I remember that part.
Yeah. So this is some miles inland, though. Is one of the problems with it, but it's got ruins built on concentric circles. Yeah, he actually found this site via computer and data analysis. And then he went out into Morocco, and there it was.
Hübner's the one that's kind of maybe got Asperger's. Is that right?
No, that's not Hübner. That's the German.
Okay, that's right. Okay, I'm getting them confused. Guy. Okay, all right. I knew one was kind of credible and one seemed a little
off.
Yeah, a little bit. But, Hübner, unfortunately, was killed in a bicycle accident recently, which is too bad.
You mean suspiciously?
Yeah, I know. That's probably
the Atlanteans got to him.
They got to him.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though. He goes out there and he finds this city, or what are the remains, some ruins of what appeared to be a city, built on a site that had concentric circles of dips and rises. And the remains of these structures are made of red, white, and black rocks. But unfortunately, the locals are carrying away all the rocks, and there's really not very much left. So it's really sad.
As we've talked about this before, it's kind of a common occurrence.
Yeah, it is. It happens, and so it's really a shame. But so I, probably maybe as I speak, maybe everything is gone. Who knows? So it's sad, but I don't think this was Atlantis anyway, because this one is miles inland and it's like hundreds of miles up. Which means, remember we talked about how we had the rings and the islands and everything, and there was a canal to the sea. Right.
Yeah.
If that canal to the sea, it means the city has to be more or less at sea level.
Yeah, you would think.
Because otherwise you'd have to have a really elaborate lock system.
Oh, God, yeah.
And also, there would be, that would have been a pretty massive canal, and there would still be some evidence of it.
Theoretically.
You would think, yeah.
So I'm going to give this one a fail. But let's ask Mark, because Mark has actually been there. Let's ask him what he thinks.
It's pretty high up. I mean, to have been hit by a wave, and we should point out that Plato's description in the Atlantis story is not the island sank to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, as is often, bandied about, but it was destroyed by earthquakes and floods in a single night. So the site you're talking about in Morocco, the guy who came up with this idea, Michael Hubner, who was an IT specialist in Bonn, Germany, he decided that this sort of circular structure, stone structure, I don't know, it's like 10 or 15 miles inland from the Atlantic coast, could have been hit by a huge tsunami. And the area has been hit by earthquakes and tsunamis frequently over the years. But yeah, it would have to be, 1,000-foot high wall of water or something to get to that site.
Yeah.
Could it be, and this is what Hubner proposes, 2 or 3 ancient stories that were put together, as they sometimes are, and remembered as a single myth? Maybe. It's possible. It's definitely possible. People love that theory because, we're in this age of big data. And what Michael Hubner did was he found 51 clues from Plato, and he plugged them into this algorithm, and when it spat out at the end, it pointed him to this one spot in Morocco. And as he described it to me, he's like, 6 sigma, this is 7 sigma.
Yeah, I remember that from your book.
He's like, it's impossible. And it's like, when you talk to one of these people who's like a pure, mathematician, it's like, well, yeah, but you're controlling the variables here, right? You're plugging in the data that you want.
Yeah.
He's like, yes, but if it did not work, we would have a null set.
All right, well, so much for the Morocco theory. Any other theories, you guys?
No, I mean, I said it before, I still believe that Plato wasn't being honest, though he said he was being honest. I really feel like he was sort of obsessed with his descriptions of the perfect government. That it wouldn't shock me for him to just willy-nilly grab things that had happened around and twist them to make them examples of good or bad for what he was trying to get across to his reader.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I tend to think that he went a little overboard with his description, because he was describing the perfect society, the perfect government, but why'd you need to toss in the elephants, the red and white and black rocks?
Maybe he liked elephants.
How long was the Republic?
Pretty
I don't
long.
remember. It was much longer than these dialogues.
And did the Republic, because I've never read the Republic, because thankfully I never had a teacher who was that cruel for such a long thing.
So what you mean is you literally never took a philosophy course ever?
Right,
Yeah.
because I don't believe in philosophy.
Right.
Anywho, the point is, he went into, I'm sure, he must have gone into some crazy details for that thing to have been that long. He couldn't have talked at a high level the whole time. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah. No, it's actually been so long since I've read it. I probably should read it again.
Okay, well, the point is that the way this story ended, he may have just been ramping up, baby. He may have just been getting started to just go again and write some huge thing.
Yeah.
And that was how it was all going to make sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Hard to tell.
So anyway, I'm still thinking it was probably something of a real story. What do you think, Devin?
No, I mean, I think I agree. I think it was based in truth. I don't think that the concentric circles. I think there's a lot of stuff that was added in. And, part of that is just you want to respect Plato for his authenticity. But also, when it comes down to it, he was a storyteller, and...
Artistic license.
Yeah, there's some artistic license that you would take. But also, I guess you don't know necessarily if the Egyptians took artistic... Or Salon took the artistic license, or who took the artistic license at one point. But I do think it probably was based in some kind of fact.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
But I don't have
you don't have a clue where it is?
Yeah.
No theories?
Not really, no.
I say it was Submariner. Just because I hate Aquaman's orange and green outfit.
Bikini bottom, probably.
Well, I never read that comic. Terrible outfit.
All right, there you go. Atlantis was real. You heard it from us. Got to be real.
We don't lie.
No, well, we're never wrong. Yeah.
We solve it every time.
Yeah, so just a few housekeeping details here. Our website, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com, if you want to, download an episode or whatever, not leave a comment because we shut comments off. I'm really sorry about that, and it had to be done, alas. You'll also find us on iTunes, and there's lots of places. Subscribe, give us a rating, and a review if you want. We would really love it, especially a favorable review. And
most of that stuff happens on iTunes.
Yeah, on iTunes.
Google, I know, doesn't allow ratings and reviews, or at least I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Where else? We're on the Facebook. We have a page. We also have a group, so join the group. Don't try to friend us. Just join the group. It's a lot of fun. We're also on the Twitter, and where we are Thinking Sideways. And we have a subreddit, Thinking Sideways. So, yeah, definitely some stuff going on out there.
There's a real pattern here.
Yeah.
Thinking Sideways.
Yeah, I know.
Every page name.
That's silly.
Yeah. Last of all, email. We love email, so send us one if you want to. We're at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. And we are on Patreon. If you want to support the show, it's totally voluntary, of course. You don't have to, but go to patreon.com/thinkingsideways. And just be aware, if you pledge money, if you pledge $1, that means you get charged $1 for every episode. So, you might be feeling generous and want to pledge $100. That means it's $100 per episode you get charged. So
which
keep that in mind. That's
which
fine.
we're totally down with.
We're totally down with this. Be forewarned.
Be forewarned, exactly.
It's not a one-time thing.
And that's why we have the
PayPal.
Yeah,
exactly. So there's PayPal.
For the one times or the merchandise. Don't forget the merch.
We got a lot of merch, yeah. And so, definitely check out the merch. Well, that's it.
And Joe, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Mark's book.
For real.
Yeah, Mark's book. Mark Adams, the book is called Meet Me in Atlantis. Came out in 2015. It's on Amazon. It's now in paperback.
Yeah,
so you
just came out in paperback recently.
Yeah, and it's a really good introduction to the whole Atlantis thing, which is much bigger and more complicated than you would believe.
Yeah, he's a pretty good author or whatever.
Yeah, he kind of knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, no, he's good at his job.
No, actually, it was a really interesting book. I got to be honest, I didn't ever read about Atlantis because I thought it was Kookyville.
Right.
Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah.
I was surprised because I knew Mark's previous book, so I was surprised when I saw that he was writing about Atlantis. Yeah. So it was very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think folks will enjoy it.
Yeah.
It is, and he brings up a lot of good stuff, which is that there are serious scientists and people out there who are actually talking about Atlantis. I mean, it's not just for nutcases.
It's not fringe science.
No, it's not fringy at all. They're actually, and he actually went out and met a lot of really, really interesting, smart people.
Yeah, very intelligent. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
there's actually very intelligent people who are working on this.
Yeah.
Again, not the Kookvilles who think it's a dome city.
Yeah.
Where Aquaman is at, because I hate Aquaman. That's who's living there.
Yeah.
It's still the Submariner.
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 No, Submariner. See, when you say a mariner is a sailor. When you say submariner, you're saying that's somebody who is less than a sailor. So submariners. This is a real point. If you are a submariner, you're not a submariner. That's the wrong way to pronounce it.
You know what I've just figured out?
What?
Joe is a total fan of Aquaman.
True.
Yeah.
Barnacle Boy.
Until next week, from Thinking Sideways HQ, goodbye.
Later, everyone.
A dramatic reading from Mr. Grenning. Atlanta was a city, landlocked, hundreds of miles from the area you now call the Atlantic Ocean, yet so desperate for the city's desire for tourism that they moved offshore, becoming an island in an even bigger delta hub, until the city overdeveloped and began to sink. Knowing their fate, the quality people ran away. Ted Turner, Hank Aaron, Jeff Foxworthy, the man who invented Coca-Cola, the magician, and the other gods of our legend. Though gods they were, and also Jane Fonda was there, the others chose to stay behind in their porches, living with their rifles, and in time evolved into mermaids to sing and dance and ring the new.
Thinking sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data before we determine why.
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hi there. Welcome to a special encore presentation of Thinking Sideways. It's an encore presentation because 2 days ago we recorded about 80% of it and then realized that we hadn't turned our mixer on.
It was like our best episode, you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
No, it wasn't really that much of a loss.
Yeah. So, well, we're here. We're going to repeat word for word what we said the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully.
If we can, actually.
Maybe.
And before I forget, I'm Joe, joined as always by
Devin?
and
Steve.
Okay. So let's solve another mystery. Oh, before I start, I also want to give a shout out to Kenji, who suggested the topic for this episode. Thanks, Kenji. Appreciate it. Keep them suggestions coming.
What are we talking about tonight? Just to refresh my memory, it's been a couple days.
Talking about, yeah, I know. Talking about B. Traven.
Oh, yeah.
B. Traven.
B. Traven.
That's right. Who was this guy? He was a German author, if you haven't heard of him before. He published 13 books, a lot of short stories. His books were extremely popular and sold millions of copies. His first book was called The Cotton Pickers. It was published in serial format in 1925.
What serial format? Oh.
Yeah, The Cotton Pickers.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's newspaper.
Yeah, newspaper article.
Yeah.
Got it.
The second novel was called The Death Ship, which I really like that title.
Of
Cool
course
title.
you do.
Yeah, I know. Came out in 1926. All of his books were originally published in German, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. So these were published in Germany. Death Ship became a movie in 1959.
What movie? Was it called The Death Ship?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
His third novel, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, was published the year after that. I'm not sure if that was made into a movie or not.
Wait, I'll look on the Google.
Okay, do that.
Okay.
Our fingers are flying over the
definitely
phone.
not faked at all. I'm totally doing this. Yeah.
Yeah?
In 1948, which was starring Humphrey Bogart.
Who?
Yeah, no, Humphrey Bogart, you know him.
Oh, the actor?
Yeah, frankly,
that guy.
my dear, I don't give it.
Mm,
Yeah, the Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
You can play it for her, you can play it for me, Sham.
Yeah, that guy.
That guy.
Yeah. Good old bogey. Back to B. Traven, his books were very popular in the U.S. and Mexico after they were translated into Spanish, and also in Europe. Quite a few were adapted, as I said, from movies and TV shows. But what's strange about Traven is that despite a very long literary career and a huge fan base, nobody actually knows who he really was, or where he was born, or when he was born. Nobody really knows. I mean, he was always kind of coy about the whole thing. I said before he was German, he published his books in German, but some people think he may actually have been born in Chicago. Traven himself always claimed to be an American, and even while he was still alive, he died in 1969, people were trying really hard to figure out who he actually was. And not just Reddit, I'm talking about journalists and people like that.
Reddit's really good at figuring out who people are.
Oh, yeah. No.
They're actually better than journalists a lot of times.
Oh, actually, they are. I mean, journalists do some amazingly hacky things sometimes.
Yeah, and Reddit is just kind of like, oh, no, this is obviously this person.
Yeah. But
There's also the fact that Reddit wasn't around then.
What?
Yeah, there was.
Yes, it was.
In 1950 something.
1950s, 60s.
1969.
It was around. It was in analog form.
Yeah.
It was on a card catalog.
We had clanked and clacked a lot.
Yeah.
Just like
No, computers
like a computer
and
on Star Trek.
I feel like the internet. I'll have to look it up.
The internet originally
In some
was in some form, but Reddit itself was not.
Yeah.
You don't know that.
Okay.
Nah.
I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna argue.
I'm not sure when the DARPANet started. I'll do a Google after the show.
Yeah.
Well, it started with DARPA.
Well, probably what happened, if Devin's right, is that the original code name of the DARPANet when it was being created was Reddit.
Reddit. DARPA, Reddit.
Could be.
I'm gonna find it.
Okay.
All right. Okay, back to B. Traven. At the start of his literary success, he was living in Mexico, and he stayed there pretty much until he died. He traveled abroad a little bit, but basically lived in Mexico. His publishers in Europe and America had never met him. He dealt with them only through representatives. Warner Brothers bought the rights to The Treasure of the Sierra Madre in 1941, and they signed up John Huston to direct. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah, what else did Houston direct? Do you know off the top of your head? I know Houston did a bunch of stuff.
Oh,
I
he
just
did a
can't.
lot of stuff. I'm having a bit of paper rock right now.
Okay.
If you want to know what he looks like, watch Chinatown. You ever see Chinatown with Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he plays the elderly bad guy in Chinatown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, keeps calling him Mr. Gitz. Yeah. And
You can tell it's been a long time. I don't quite get that joke.
yeah, okay. So Nicholson's name was Giddies, and this guy, he kept mispronouncing his name, Mr. Gitz. So if anybody
Still not funny.
Yeah.
Lots of our listeners are cackling hysterically right now.
I'm sure, yeah, it's hilarious. No, actually, if you haven't seen Chinatown, you should see it. It's a classic. Really good movie. Okay, back to, I'm getting all off course here.
Yeah.
Houston set up a meeting with Traven in 1946 in Mexico City, but Traven didn't make it to the meeting.
Air quotes included, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead, a guy named Hal Crowe showed up with a letter, which was a power of attorney from B. Traven. In the letter, Traven authorized Hal Crowe to decide all matters regarding the filming of the novel. So Crowe, to not be Traven, was present for the filming of the movie on location in Mexico.
So that might suggest.
You would think, huh?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a lot of people that were involved with the film were asking Crowe if it was actually B. Traven. Crowe always said that he was not. He probably was Traven. We'll never know absolutely for sure. I'm kind of guessing he was. Then most of the crew believed that Crowe and Traven were the same person, although John Huston came to believe that they weren't the same person, for God knows what reason. But I'm only recounting this one story because it's so typical of Traven. He was always real cagey about his identity and protecting his privacy. His motivation might have been, quote, the creative person should have no other biography than his works, unquote.
And that's from Traven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's unusual for somebody to want to put their work into the public eye, whether it be writing or music or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
For most people, there's a bit of hubris there.
Yeah.
And to not want to be known is
Mm-hmm.
a little unusual.
Well, I think the irony of that is that
Yeah.
if he had truly just written his books and kind of gone about his life, we would remember his works likely, but nobody would care who this B. Traven dude was, other than an author, and
he lived
wrote,
in Mexico.
Yeah,
and yada yada.
but
yada.
the fact that he was so cagey with his true identity and so standoffish is really the reason that he's remembered for anything other than his work.
I know. See, this, like you say, ironic.
That true irony, real kind of irony, not like
real
spoon.
Irony. Yeah, or it could be he's even smarter than we realize, and he did this on purpose so that people would be obsessing over who he really was for many decades after his
He
death.
actually did want to be remembered.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what it is.
Maybe that's it.
Sneaky.
Yeah. Probably the reason he hid from the public eye is that he was private and he just wanted people to read his books and not think about him. It appears that B. Traven arrived in Mexico around 1924, although there's a little bit of dispute about this. Some think as early as 1922. One person says 1914.
I was going to say, I read something about much earlier, so okay. 1914 is the earliest accounting we have of Traven arriving in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's accurate or not, that's the earliest.
Does not appear to be accurate, but we'll figure out why in a little bit here. His widow said that he got to Mexico by signing on as a crew member on a ship from England to Norway. She said it was a death ship. That's where he got the
I was going to say, wait, okay.
And then from Norway, he got caught another ship to Africa, and on a third, he went to Mexico. the inspiration for Death Ship from his experience on his long voyage.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, the Death Ship and I think the Cotton Pickers are both deal a lot with what the proletariat experiences in these terrible working conditions. So it would make sense that that's where he pulled a bunch of the content from.
That was a big word for you, Steve.
I know.
Proletariat?
I Googled it.
Yeah, you must have. Sorry,
Yeah.
you're not dumb. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's one of the ironic things about the Industrial Revolutions. You hear so many horror stories, but people still flock from the farms and the fields to go work in the factories.
Well, it paid better.
Because working on the farm sucked.
Where it sucks. And the thing about farms that's different from factories is on farms you get these things called failed harvests, and then after that you get what's called a famine. At least you get steady work in the factory.
Yeah.
Even if it pays terrible.
Pays better than corn.
Better than the farm thing.
Although it sounds like the living conditions were worse, but
Hey.
we're way off track.
Who cares?
We are
We don't have to do that.
Thank goodness.
Okay, back to the story here. From Mexico, Traven submitted his novels for publication in Europe in German. In 1933, he sent 3 manuscripts of his earlier novels in English to Alfred A. Knopf in New York for publication. And he claimed that these were the original works and the ones previously published were just translations.
Hold on.
Yeah.
When did the German versions get submitted to publishers?
In the 20s.
In the 20s.
Yeah, and then he waits till 1933 to submit them.
So we're talking half a decade to a decade later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
About 8 years.
It's just that there's so many weird dates and there's so many conflicting things. I just want to try and keep this as linear as possible.
Yeah, with this story, it is kind of hard to keep all the details straight in your head. It's confusing. The thing that's odd about these translators, the English version, is people who happen to read both German and English have said that there are a lot of differences between the German and the English versions. People claim that the German ones contain Americanisms, whatever those are.
Yeah, I don't know what that
I was
means.
going to ask. I still don't understand what that is.
Colloquialisms?
Perhaps colloquialisms.
Although that varies by region. It could be Canadian. Could be Mexican.
Yeah.
No,
but that
can't be Mexican colloquialisms because we come from Spanish. No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
My German vocabulary consists of about 5 words, so I'm not reading them in German to find out.
No, nor am I.
Yeah, but the Americanisms in his books is why so many people believe that he was born in America. But then here's the funny part: the English version supposedly contained Germanisms, and I haven't read it, so I can't comment.
The only thing I can think of is like the fatherland statements like that, things that are just so common to say that you hear in direct translations. Those are the only things that I can think of that would be in there that could be called a Germanism.
Well, I guess
Americanism.
if he was born in America but grew up in like a German slum or something, he would be surrounded by people speaking both German and English. It's possible that he was fluent in both.
Yeah.
It's possible that when he wrote, he had both Americanisms and Germanisms, and therefore that accounts. I assume that they're separate.
Yeah.
It's not like the Americanism is replaced with the Germanism in the English translation. So it's possible that he just picked up both of them.
Yeah, it's possible that both versions had both Americanisms
and that you just notice it in the other language because, hey, it's different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and there are apparently other differences between the 2 books too. But if he did submit them years after the first ones, maybe he just revised them a little bit because wanted to make them better.
And to appeal to the reader.
Yeah, it could be that too. Yeah. It appears that Mr. Traven was one of 3 people: Barrick Traven Torsven, Rhett Marut, or Hal Crows, or possibly all 3. All right. Well, we'll skip right straight into the theories. We're gonna start with the less likely ones first.
No, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, okay.
Are we doing like the list thing that we do sometimes? Or just like list a bunch of stupid theories and then talk about some good ones? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It looks like it based
Perfect
on
to me.
this list I have in front of me.
Yeah, we can discuss.
It's a list.
We can discuss these as much as you guys want to. First, Traven was an amalgamation of 2 or more people who collaborated on the books and the stories. Yeah.
That doesn't.
I don't know.
Well, how many? There's not a lot of great works out there that were written by
2 or more people.
collaboration.
Yeah, I know there aren't.
No, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
Yeah. But
That's why you only
especially-
see it in fantasy sci-fi novels
Yeah.
and murder mysteries.
Yeah, you do see a lot of it in fantasy and sci-fi, oddly enough. Okay, so much for that theory. Another theory is that he was hiding from a dark past, and he apparently was.
Huh?
Yeah. We'll talk about that in one of the more serious theories. If he was indeed, some people believe he was Ret Marut.
Which I'm guessing we're going to get to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ret
All right.
Marut had, sort of a dark
All right,
past.
nice teaser there.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Traven was just a shy guy.
Oh, a shy guy.
Uh-huh.
Like a little shy guy.
Just a little shy guy.
A shy guy.
Yeah.
A little blue shy guy.
Yeah.
I don't get
Did
the.
you
Yeah, me
know?
neither.
That's what they call. Just play a Nintendo game sometimes.
I grew up on Nintendo games. Which blue shy guy are we talking
He's
about?
not blue. This is a little shy guy from
Is this an
Mario
adventure
stuff.
of Lolo?
No,